Hello, my name's Gary Blower. I am the IT Service Management Practice Lead for Code in the UK and US. And this short webinar are my top 5 tips to power up incident management in Jira Service Management. So just to start off with, let's just have a recap of what we mean by incident management and what we're trying to achieve. So when we have an incident, we're trying to restore our service as quickly as possible to minimize the impact and to also do so as safely as we can. And ideally, we want to do that as part of a swarm. So we actively work together to resolve the incident. So the first tip really is to embrace modern incident management techniques such as swarming. Now, a study done by Forrester in 2020 found that actually 70% of all of the time spent working on incidents was actually during the investigation and diagnosis stage, often bouncing between different individuals to try to then determine who's best to investigate and find out what the issue is. So a modern incident management technique that can be used, which is part of ITIL V4, if you're familiar with that, and a high velocity IT technique is to use something called incident swarming. And the way it works is that when you have an incident, particularly a major incident, you form a single virtual team. So whoever first picks up the incident will then consult and bring in all the various subject matter experts that could be involved in resolving the incident. They can come from lots of different functions. There's no hierarchy. There's no, there's no order to it. If you do have someone like an incident manager, then they can act as a facilitator, but that's all they should do. And the idea is the team then collaborates and works out between them very quickly which areas need to be investigated and get to the root cause as fast as possible. And as it says here, the idea is that the first person who takes the case owns it until it's resolved. The benefit of this is it kind of reduces the hot potato. The hot potato is when an incident is raised and it gets bounced in between different teams or different queues until it finds the right team who's actually going to resolve it. With swarming, you invite every team at the start, and then as you start to investigate, you work out which team actually needs to take the lead on it. So in order to facilitate this, what you need to do is actually have a kind of mechanism whereby whoever is the first to pick up the incident can determine who are the subject matter experts to bring in, and also have a solution that allows you to bring people together very quickly. And the best way to do that is actually to use something like Slack or Microsoft Teams, and then just have a taxonomy of contacts, a Confluence page or Confluence space which lists who the key contacts are, and then invite them to the Slack or the Teams channel. And the beauty of it is that within Jira Service Management, you can do all that from the user interface, as I'll show you in a moment. As I mentioned, if you're going to have an incident manager or incident commander, then they should really act as a facilitator or coach rather than actually owning the incident itself. So they're there really just to help out and ensure that the swarm is taking place. So the way we can achieve that is two ways, really. In Jira Service Management, we can make use of its dynamic queues. So when an instance raised, it can appear in multiple queues simultaneously. So each of those functions or teams will see the incident in their queues. And then you can create a Slack channel or a Microsoft Teams channel directly from the incident. And as you can see in this screenshot for GLM 827, we can create the dedicated Slack channel and then just start inviting everyone into the swarm. Tip number 2 is to power up your communication. And what do we mean by this? Well, we're talking about communicating the status of the incident. This is either communication within the incident team, and we've just seen an example of that using Microsoft Teams or Slack. Communication with stakeholders, so incident managers or service owners that need to be kept abreast when a major incident has occurred, and indeed communication with customers. If you need to let your customers know that a particular service is currently unavailable, you need to do a mass communication to them. And there are a number of ways we can do that. So stakeholder communication is built into Jira Service Management. So you can actually define within the service who are the primary stakeholders. So whenever an incident is raised against that service, they are then automatically populated on the incident. And then you can simply on the incident provide updates to the stakeholders directly within Jira itself, and it will send them a notification and they can keep abreast of the progress. For customer communication, then we can make use of things like Atlassian status page, which gives us the ability to communicate with a lot of people at once. And those individuals can subscribe to the status page and receive SMS messages or an email, whatever their preference is. And we can actually make use of Jira Service Management's instant management engine, which is powered by Opsgenie, to actually automate that process if we want to. And we can see in this screenshot, when the incident is raised, we can add these special labels or tags to the incident, which are then reflected in the Opsgenie alert that's sent out to the support team or the operations team. And if we link that to status page, then the alert can automatically update the status page, as you can see in the screenshot. And indeed, the operations team can they can add messages and information to the alert, which will then be added to the status page itself. When you resolve the incident, everything else is also resolved. So the alert will be resolved and the status page will return to operational. Next, powering up incident forms. So when you have incidents raised by customers, you really want to capture as much information as possible up front. And so you can create a guided process for your customer to do that by using some of Jira Service Management's forms. So, for example, you might want to capture or ask the customer to provide details of error messages or warnings, any steps they've taken to recreate the incident, or any steps they've taken to actually try and resolve it, and also what the impact is on both them, the service, or indeed any customers. So we can use Jira Service Management's incident form, which is one of the 300 forms available in the tool. And we can actually configure it and change it to include more dynamic behavior. So we can even do wizard style questioning, where you can ask a series of questions, then based on the response, you can then ask alternative follow-up questions. You can also leave the form open to edit. So after a customer submitted the form, they can view it. And if they discover something else, they can update the form, and that will update the incident for you. And as I mentioned, this is a fully out of the box template. So you can just use the built-in template, or you can customize it to add your own steps. Next, powering up alerting. So alerts are a notification sent of an event that's normally sent from a monitoring tool of some kind. And alerts are used alongside incidents to help us actually manage our services. Now, a good way to think of the difference between an alert and an incident is an alert is analogous to, say, a warning light on your car on the dashboard. So you're driving along and you get a red light or an amber light appear on your car's dashboard, warning you that there may be an issue. Maybe it's a tire pressure light, for example. At that point, it's just a warning. It's an alert. It's drawing your attention to something. It may or may not become an incident. The incident occurs when maybe we have a puncture and we can no longer drive, and we have to pull over and then call a rescue company to come and tow us to the nearest garage. That's when we actually raise an incident, because at that point we've had service failure, and so we need to then raise an incident to recover us so that we can carry on our journey. So alerts and incidents are heavily linked, but an alert is a precursor potentially, or a warning of an incident. It doesn't necessarily mean an incident is going to occur. So how does this help? Well, the alerting capability is built into Jira Service Management, and it's powered by Opsgenie, and it allows us to receive events from over 200 different monitoring tools. So we might be using something like Datadog or Pingdom to actually receive alerts into the system. And what we can do is, if we receive a particular alert, and we know if it's a particular severity, we can actually automate it, so it then automatically creates an incident. So here at the example at the bottom, you can see that when Uptime Robot reports a P1 alert, it automatically then creates the Jira incident. We can also associate alerts with an ongoing incident. So if we've got a major incident and our monitoring tools are generating alerts, we can link those together. And then finally, if we have a major incident and we want to notify our operations team using Opsgenie to send a push notification or an SMS message, then again, we can power up the alerting so that when that incident occurs, it generates an alert in the system. That alert will then notify whoever's on call, and everyone can then start swarming on that incident. And then finally, we can power up our reviews following a major incident. So typically, after a major incident, we would do a post-incident review, where we look to see if we can determine what the root cause was and identify if there's any long-term fixes, workarounds, where we document document it as a known error. So if it occurs again, we can identify it very quickly. Whether there's any mitigation we need to put in place, or any development work or new release or patch that will prevent the incident occurring in the first place. So one of the ways we can power up Jira Service Management to assist us with our post-incident reviews is actually to use Jira's automation to automatically create the post-incident review and then link to it a post-mortem report. And you can do this in one of two ways. Confluence has a really good post-mortem template, which is quite a good place to actually perform your incident post-mortem. You can get everyone together. They can add all the information to the Confluence page, add screenshots, log files, that kind of thing. You can also do it within Jira by using, again, another one of those forms. There's actually an incident postmortem form. And so when you create your post-incident review in Jira, you can have the form automatically attached to the Jira ticket. And in this screenshot, we've actually got an example of that. So here we can see the automation rule that basically whenever we create a post-incident review, it then automatically adds the post-incident form to the ticket. And here we can actually see the post-incident itself, showing us the incident summary from the original incident. So there we go. So those were my top 5 tips for powering up incident management in Jira Service Management. So in summary, learn to embrace the concept of incident swarming. It can significantly reduce the time it takes to resolve your incidents. Improve your communication, both within the team using things like Slack and Teams, or with stakeholders by using the built-in facility to automatically add stakeholders when an incident's raised. And indeed with customers by using Status Page and potentially automating that through Jira and OpsGenie. Make use of those dynamic forms so that when a customer raises an incident, you can capture all the information you need. Power up your alerting so that you can have major incidents, notify everyone with an alert, with a notification. When you have an alert that comes in from a monitoring tool and you know it's priority 1, you can have it automatically escalate itself into an incident. Just cutting out, again, trying to compress and cut out that lead time. And then finally, when you've restored service and you've resolved your incident, it's always best practice, particularly with major incidents, to do a post-incident review and potentially do a post-mortem. And we can again power that up by automatically adding the Confluence page or the post-mortem form to your PIR ticket. So I hope that was useful. If you'd like more information, then you can reach out to myself here on LinkedIn, details on the screen. But I hope these tips will be useful to you in your incident management solutions.